The story The Wind Box and the Lost Watchmaker. Chapter 1. The Watchmaker's Shop of Forgotten Moments. The city of time spun ceaselessly, caught in its own hurried rhythm. Giant clocks in the central square chimed every hour, pocket watches jingled softly in the hurried steps of pedestrians, and the constant tick-tock echoed from every alleyway, every window pane. Everyone lived in a rush, striving to catch up with something invisible called time. Yet ironically, the harder they tried, the more they lost the precious moments time offered. Amidst this relentless turning, nestled on the most ancient, moss-covered street, lay a small watchmaker's shop, where time itself seemed to have come to a quiet halt. This was Elias's shop. The old wooden sign, faded and weathered, bore the barely legible, whimsical script: Elias's Timepieces, Mender of Time. Inside, hundreds of clocks of every shape and size lay silent on shelves, in glass cabinets, and scattered across his cluttered workbench. Grandfather clocks with motionless pendulums, shining golden pocket watches now just lifeless ornaments, intricately crafted wristwatches with crooked hands. They lay dormant, like hearts that had ceased to beat. Elias's shop, once a treasure trove of lively rhythms, was now a quiet graveyard of time. Elias himself, with his tangled salt and pepper hair and eyes etched deep with lines, was a mere shadow of his former self. He was once a gifted artisan, known as the watchmaker of clock souls. His calloused, gnarled hands had once possessed the uncanny ability to sense the soul of each timepiece, to listen to the soft breathing of its gears, to adjust each tiny spring until it harmonized into a perfect symphony of time. Every clock he crafted was not merely a machine for counting hours, but a work of art with its own unique heartbeat, telling a distinct story of its owner's life. But then, one fateful day changed everything. It was a bitterly cold winter afternoon with snow falling endlessly, thick and silent. His daughter, little Lyra, with her bright, sun-kissed hair and a smile as radiant as dancing clock hands, had drifted away forever in a fierce, sudden blizzard. Elias remembered so vividly Lyra's pure laughter as she played with the snowflakes, remembered her last warm embrace. After that profound loss, Elias's heart became frozen. His sorrow became a deep, unhealing crack in the very flow of his own time, and strangely, it also froze his ability to mend time itself. Every machine he touched simply stopped. He lived a quiet, solitary life, surrounded by dead clocks, sustained only by habit and an unrelenting sorrow. He refused all customers, rejected all offers of help. The world outside, with its hurried tick-tock, grew increasingly alien and meaningless to him. Elias was not merely a watchmaker who had lost his skill. He was a lost soul, trapped in a single, motionless moment of time. Chapter 2. The Whispering Windbox. One gloomy afternoon, as fine, misty rain began to fall, draping the streets in a soft gray veil, an old oak box appeared silently on the doorstep of Elias's shop. It bore no markings, no address, only a yellowed, delicate piece of paper with elegant, somewhat peculiar handwriting, for one who knows how to listen to the unseen. Elias, with his usual indifference to all things, intended to push the box away. He had grown accustomed to his isolation, unwilling to let anything new disturb his tranquil world. But then, an unusual gust of wind, seeming to come from nowhere, like a soft sigh, gently slipped through the crack in the door, making him pause. This wind was not biting cold like the winter breeze. Instead, it carried a faint, earthy scent of damp soil and fallen leaves, like a mysterious invitation. With a strange reluctance, Elias picked up the box. It was crafted from ancient oak, intricately carved with swirling wind patterns, as if it had been woven from the very currents of time. At first it felt cool and rigid, but as he held it, a peculiar warmth gradually spread from within, as if a gentle heart beat softly inside. When he opened the box, what Elias found was not gears or springs, but a tiny wind box made of transparent glass, meticulously hand-blown to be almost invisible. Inside there was nothing but a faint, shimmering silver mist, swirling softly like a graceful dance of air. Accompanying it was a handwritten letter, with slender poetic script. To Elias, the watchmaker of sighing beats, I am Ariel, guardian of the forgotten melodies of time. This universe is vaster than what you perceive, and time is not merely numbers etched on a clock face. Every soul, every being, every moment possesses its own unique melody, its own distinct heartbeat. When that melody is forgotten or frozen by sorrow and fear, time itself ceases to flow within their hearts. I sense the profound silence within you, a silence that has lingered far too long. I send you this wind box. It will only open fully when you find the scattered fragments of these forgotten melodies of time. Follow the whispering winds. They will guide you to lost souls, to those who see with their hearts, where you will find the answers for yourself. Elias offered a mournful smile. A meaningless message, he thought, for a man who had lost all connection to time, a man who knew only how to cling to his pain. He placed the wind box on his workbench, and the silver mist inside began to swirl more vigorously, and a faint, soft whisper echoed like a distant wind chimes from his memory. Seek those who see with their hearts. They will show you what cannot be seen with the eyes. Elias started. The whisper was no illusion. It was real, and it stirred something deep within him that had long been dormant. A fragile glimmer of hope, an inexplicable curiosity, finally compelled him, after many years, to step out of his familiar shop door. Part 2. The Awakening Melodies. Chapter 3. The Melody of Longing and the Listener of the Wind. Stepping out of his watchmaker's shop, Elias felt as if he were a traveler unbound by time. The city of time still hummed and rushed as always, yet to him it felt strangely alien. The blare of car horns, the hurried footsteps of passers-by, the punctual chimes of public clocks, all sounded like a dissonant symphony that failed to reach him. The wind box in his hand, though invisible, vibrated gently, and a soft breeze caressed him, leading the way. The breeze guided him to an old weathered park, where rusted swings hung motionless and worn stone benches bore the marks of countless passing years. Ancient trees stretched their gnarled branches, their barren leaves rustling mournfully in the winter wind. There he found a little girl named Lana, sitting on a swing, her eyes as clear as an autumn pond, gazing up at the sky. Lana could not hear sounds with her ears. Her world was one of absolute silence. Yet she possessed a miraculous ability. She could hear the stories of the wind. She perceived the most subtle vibrations in the air, the rustling of leaves, the breath of inanimate objects. She carried a small, empty oak picture frame, inside which there was no photograph. As Elias approached, the wind box in his hand vibrated strongly, the silver mist inside swirling faster. Lana turned, her clear eyes meeting his, as if she had known he would come. She didn't speak, simply motioned for him to sit beside her. "Can you hear anything?" Elias asked, his voice a gentle whisper, as if afraid to disturb her quiet world. Lana smiled, her lips moving silently. She extended her hand into the air, as if touching an invisible thread. Then, slowly, she used her finger to draw on the damp ground, creating graceful flowing lines, as if telling a story. It was a drawing of withered leaves falling from branches, dancing in the wind, and wild flowers that had long faded. Then she drew an elderly woman embracing a small child, her hair white as clouds, but her face blurred. "I hear a sad song, the song of falling leaves, of words left unspoken," Lana whispered, and Elias strangely seemed to hear her voice within his mind, like a soft breeze. "It's the song of longing, of what has passed and cannot return." The wind box in Elias's hand glowed brightly. A small fragment of the silver mist separated itself, floated in the air, and then dissolved into Lana's empty picture frame. Instantly, the frame shimmered as if an invisible image had appeared, luminous in the weak sunlight. Lana smiled, holding the frame close to her heart. "This is the melody of longing." Ariel's voice resonated from somewhere, clear as crystal chimes. "It is the first fragment. Longing is not a burden, but a gentle thread connecting us to the past. This little girl has accepted her longing and transformed it into the whispering stories of the wind, of love. You have tried to forget your longing for Lyra by freezing it, Elias. But longing is only healed when you accept it, making it a part of who you are." Elias was stunned. His longing for Lyra. He had always tried to bury it, treating it like an enemy. But now, looking at Lana, he understood that longing was not suffering. It was a form of gratitude, a way to continue loving what had been lost. A gentle longing swelled within him, no longer painful, but warm, like the first ray of sunlight piercing through clouds. Chapter 4: The Melody of Memory's Strength and the Keeper of the Library. The wind continued to guide Elias, this time leading him to an ancient library, nestled amidst the towering skyscrapers of the City of Time. This library was unlike any other. Built in Gothic style with giant stained glass windows, its interior was a labyrinth of towering bookshelves, reaching to the ceiling. The scent of old paper, ink, and the dust of ages permeated the space, creating a solemn atmosphere, as if every story in the world were confined within its walls. At the heart of this literary maze, he met an old librarian named Alara. The old man had hair as white as snow, and eyes that were keen yet held a deep melancholy. Alara was the keeper of all the city's memories, meticulously recording every major event and every ordinary tale of its inhabitants. He possessed a prodigious memory, able to recall every detail from thousands of books. Yet ironically, Alara was haunted by a lost page in his own life. He believed that if he could find that page, he would unravel everything, all the mysteries of the past. He constantly rummaged through books, obsessively rearranging them, but he never found what he sought. As Elias approached, the wind box in his hand vibrated strongly again, the silver mist swirling like a small vortex. "What are you searching for, sir?" Elias asked, his voice soft. "I am searching for a lost page," Alara replied, his voice filled with regret and wariness. "That page tells of a period of time I have forgotten, a significant event that changed everything. I must find it to understand myself." Elias looked at the old man, observing the obsession in his eyes, and suddenly recognized the resemblance to himself. Alara was desperately trying to hold on to the past perfectly, just as Elias had tried to turn back time to prevent Lyra's loss. Elias did not attempt to help Alara find the page. Instead, he sat down beside him and began to tell stories. He spoke of Lana, of how she heard the wind's longing. He spoke of his own watch shop, of the dead clocks, and of his own grief. He did not speak with the hope that Alara would help him, but simply to share. As Elias spoke, Alara listened. For the first time in many years, Alara was no longer trying to search, he was simply receiving. When Elias's story concluded, another fragment of silver mist detached itself from the wind box and drifted directly into Alara. "This is the melody of memory's strength," Ariel's voice resonated, gentle as a spring breeze. "Memory is not a burden or a restraint, but a continuous flow. The strength of memory lies in its ability to accept its fluidity, to accept forgetting a part of it in order to cherish what remains. You have tried to hold on to everything, Alara, but no page is truly lost. There are only voids that need to be embraced." Alara smiled with relief. It was a serene smile, no longer clouded by worry. He had not found the lost page, but he had found peace in accepting that not everything needed to be remembered. Not every memory had to be perfect. Memory is a current. It is fragments, and its value lies in what we learn from it, not in clinging to every detail. Elias felt another burden lift from his own heart. Chapter 5: The Melody of Connection and the Lonely Artist. The wind continued to guide Elias, this time leading him to a vibrant art district. Small alleyways were covered in dazzling graffiti murals, distant music drifted from quaint cafes, and the scent of paint and strong coffee permeated the air. This was a haven for free and creative souls. In a hidden corner, nestled behind a colorful wall, he encountered a young woman named N Artist, often painting vibrant, colorful scenes of joyful crowds, lively gatherings, and festivals filled with laughter. Her paintings were full of life, yet ironically, Nova always sat alone, her eyes averted, as if she were an outsider, only able to observe life from a distance. She feared loneliness, feared that her talent would not be recognized, and she constantly sought a true gaze, a genuine connection. She always carried a worn-out pencil and a tattered sketchbook, where she only drew pictures of emptiness. As Elias approached, the wind box vibrated strongly again, the silver mist swirling as if eager to escape. Elias did not speak to Nova. He simply stood there, quietly observing her as she painted. She was drawing a picture of a grand concert, but all the faces were blurred, and in the center there was an empty space, as if an important person had vanished. Elias recognized her fear of loneliness, of being unconnected, much like his own fear when he isolated himself after Lyra's death. Nova sensed Elias's presence. She didn't look up, but her brushstrokes began to change. She started to draw a portrait. Elias was surprised to find it was no ordinary portrait. Nova didn't draw his outward appearance. Instead, she captured the profound sadness in his eyes, the weary lines on his face, and the faint glimmer of hope hidden within the wind box he held. "She doesn't see with her eyes, but with her heart," Ariel whispered in Elias's mind. Elias suddenly felt a strong urge. He didn't tell her about himself. Instead, he told Nova about the people he had met. He spoke of Lana, the girl who heard the wind's longing, and of Alara, who had accepted the voids in his memories. He recounted how they had found their melodies. He didn't offer advice, he simply shared. As Elias spoke, Nova listened through each stroke of her pencil. Her lines gradually became softer, and the blurred faces in her painting slowly gained detail. Finally, she completed her drawing. It was a picture of an old man sitting amidst a crowd, yet a thin thread of light connected him to a small, smiling girl. A fragment of silver mist from the windbox drifted out and merged into Nova's empty sketchbook. Instantly, the blank pages shimmered, as if invisible drawings were appearing. Nova suddenly turned to look at Elias, her eyes filled with profound understanding. She realized that connection didn't need to be loud or showy. It was the sincere presence and understanding. She had once been betrayed by a close friend, causing her to lose faith in connection. She used art to seek connection, but unconsciously pushed people away. Now she understood that connection is voluntary, not a search for validation. "This is the melody of connection," Ariel's voice echoed, soft as a brushstroke on canvas. "Connection is not dependence or blending into a crowd, but finding a genuine bond, even if it's only with one person. Unconditional presence and listening can heal the deepest fear of loneliness." Elias felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had once believed that connection meant having Lyra by his side, but now he understood that he could still connect with the world, with those around him, and even with Lyra in a different way. Chapter 6: The Melody of the Circle of Rebirth and the Botanical Scholar. The whispering wind continued to guide Elias, this time leading him to a hidden garden nestled among the skyscrapers, a place where beauty lay not in vibrant blooms but in quiet contemplation, in the cycles of growth and decay. It was a secret garden, where everything obeyed the laws of nature. Golden leaves fell, branches withered, and ancient trees stretched their gnarled limbs, their foliage stark against the winter sky. A colossal ancient tree stood at the garden's heart, its bark gnarled like the passage of countless years. Here, he met an elderly woman with calloused hands and hair as white as roots, named Silvana. She was a retired botanist, living reclusively within this garden. She studied the life cycles of trees, understanding profoundly the processes of transformation, decay, and rebirth. She did not grieve when flowers withered or leaves fell, for she understood that it was an indispensable part of life's eternal cycle. She had her own story of loss. She had lost a lifetime's work of research due to an accident, but she was not consumed by sorrow. She believed that knowledge, like a seed, would sprout in another way through others. As Elias entered the garden, the wind box vibrated intensely, the silver mist swirling as if about to burst. Elias initially viewed the garden with gloom. To him, it was a place of decay, of death. "What do you see?" Silvana asked, her voice calm like the rustling of leaves. "Do you see the end, perhaps?" Elias nodded. "Only decay." Silvana smiled. "Look closer. Look at this tiny seed." She pointed to a small seed resting on the damp earth. "It will sprout, then grow into a tree, then bear flowers and fruit. Then its leaves will fall, its branches wither, but its death is not the end. It will become nourishment for the earth, feeding new seeds. That is the cycle, not the conclusion." She recounted the life cycle of a tree to Elias, from its tiny seed form, through storms and droughts, to its blooming, fruiting, and finally returning to the earth. Elias listened, and he gradually recognized his own clinging to the idea of Lyra living forever, refusing to accept her departure. He had viewed death as an end, as annihilation, but through Sylvana's story, he began to see a different meaning. As Elias began to perceive death as a part of life, a fragment of silver mist from the wind box floated out and merged into Sylvana. She smiled peacefully, her eyes shining with gratitude. "This is the melody of the circle of rebirth," Ariel's voice resonated, warm as morning sunlight. "Accepting the cycle of life and death is the key to finding peace. Loss is not an end, but a part of rebirth, of an eternal cycle. Like a seed awaiting spring, Lyra remains a part of your life, not in physical form, but in her spirit and what she left behind." Elias felt acceptance envelop him, a profound sense of peace spreading within. He looked towards Lyra's grave, no longer with a piercing sorrow, but with a sense of eternal connection. Chapter 7: The Melody of Courage and the Dissonant Musician. The wind carried Elias to a derelict music hall. Once a vibrant center of grand concerts, where melodic strings and soaring voices echoed, it was now a mere ruin, filled with dust and an eerie silence. Faint light filtered through shattered windows, illuminating an empty stage where an old grand piano lay solitary. Here Elias met Leo, a young, talented musician who had lost his rhythm. He was once a renowned concert pianist, praised for his emotional performances. But after a major setback on stage, a single wrong note in a crucial concert, he had lost all confidence. He no longer dared to play music, constantly hearing a chaotic rhythm in his mind, an echo of his failure. He always carried a torn piece of sheet music. As Elias stepped in, the wind box vibrated violently, the silver mist swirling like a small storm. Elias heard disjointed, discordant piano notes from the stage. Leo was trying to play, but his fingers trembled, unable to form a melody. The notes scattered, failing to coalesce into music. "I can't play anymore," Leo said, his voice choked with emotion. "That wrong note, it haunts me. I no longer dare to face my own music." Elias looked at Leo, and he saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of judgment, the fear of failing again. He realized Leo too was trapped in a moment of time, a moment of failure. Elias did not try to fix Leo's rhythm, nor did he try to show him how to play correctly. Instead, he sat down beside him and simply listened. "Play what you feel," Elias said, his voice gentle. "Even if it's imperfect, let your fear, too, have a rhythm." Leo looked at Elias, skeptical. But then he took a deep breath. He began to play again. This time, he no longer strove for perfection. He played what he felt, sad notes, discordant melodies, the sounds of his fear. Though still imperfect, each note Leo played was strangely authentic. As Leo played, a fragment of silver mist from the wind box floated out and merged into the torn piece of sheet music Leo carried. Instantly, the sheet music shimmered as if it had been mended with light. Leo suddenly looked at Elias, his eyes gleaming with determination. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but facing fear and moving forward. He continued to play, no longer trying to hide the wrong notes, but accepting them as part of the melody of his life. The piano, though still containing some discordant notes, was now filled with emotion, gradually regaining its rhythm. "This is the melody of courage," Ariel's voice resonated, powerful as a new symphony. "Courage is not perfection, but accepting imperfection and continuing to move forward. Fear is part of the human condition, but facing that fear and still living is how one finds their own rhythm." Elias felt a new strength rise within him. He had once been afraid to confront the pain of Lyra's loss, afraid to step out of his shell. Now, he understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but having fear and still continuing to live. Chapter 8: The Melody of Wonder and the Dreamer Child. The wind led Elias to an old, dilapidated observatory on a quiet hill, isolated from the city's hustle and bustle. The giant telescope was rusted, no longer capable of seeing the stars clearly. The night sky of the city of time was often marred by light pollution, making the sparkling stars almost invisible. Here, Elias met Finn, an orphaned boy, thin but with eyes that shone brightly, as if they held an entire starry sky within them. Finn owned little more than a crudely drawn star map and an unwavering belief in the existence of undiscovered planets, of distant galaxies. Despite living in a harsh reality, Finn held firm to his belief in miracles. He would always gaze up at the night sky and tell stories of planets he believed he would visit one day. He didn't look at the sky with a telescope, but with eyes full of dreams. As Elias stepped into the observatory, the wind box vibrated gently, the silver mist inside swirling like a dance of stars. Elias initially found Finn too naive, too unrealistic. He had lost his ability to see wonder after Lyra's death. To him, the world was a cruel place with no room left for dreams. "Do you see them?" Finn asked, his voice full of excitement, his eyes fixed on the inky black sky. "The stars. They're singing a secret melody. I believe my parents are on a distant planet somewhere, and they will come to pick me up." Elias looked up at the sky, seeing only a few faint specks of light. "There's nothing there, little one. Only darkness." Finn smiled. "You have to see with your heart, sir. I don't need a telescope to see them. I see them in my stories, in my dreams." Finn began to tell Elias a story about a shooting star carrying wishes, about adventures through galaxies, about strange creatures living on distant planets. Finn's story was vibrant and full of life, pulling Elias away from his harsh reality. As Finn told his story, a fragment of silver mist from the wind box floated out and merged into the boy's self-drawn star map. Instantly, the crude drawings came alive, as if the stars on it were truly sparkling. Finn smiled radiantly, hugging his star map tightly. Elias looked at Finn, and he suddenly realized that Lyra was still his star. No need to touch her. No need to search for her in reality. Belief in wonder would nourish the soul, bringing hope even in the darkest moments. "This is the melody of wonder," Ariel's voice resonated, shimmering like starlight. Belief in wonder is not delusion, but the ability to see beauty in the smallest things, and to hold on to hope even when all seems lost. It is this wonder that will guide the soul. Elias felt a faint light glimmering within him. He had once believed that wonder had died with Lyra, but now he understood that wonder always existed. He had just stopped seeing it. Part 3, The Eternal Flow of Time. Chapter 9, Ariel's Final Whisper and the Fateful Encounter. The wind box was now almost empty. The silver mist inside was but a fragile glimmer, sparkling like the last dewdrop clinging to a leaf. Ariel's whisper was no longer distant. It had grown clear and frequent, like a voice guiding Elias to a place he had avoided for far too long. The wind led Elias to a small, secluded cemetery nestled on a quiet hill, where weathered tombstones lay scattered beneath tall, whispering pine trees. This was where he had buried not only his daughter, Lyra, but also a part of his own heart. He had not returned here since the funeral, unwilling to confront the raw grief that this place evoked. As Elias stepped into the cemetery, a heavy sorrow enveloped him. The pain, the regret, and the boundless love for Lyra washed over him like a tidal wave. He walked past rows of graves, his heart pounding, until he stopped before a small tombstone, etched with Lyra's name. He knelt, his shoulders trembling. For many years he had desperately clung to time, clutching to the memories of Lyra, refusing to let them drift away. He had believed that letting go meant forgetting. He had fought against his sorrow, locking it away in the darkest corner of his soul. But now, facing Lyra's grave, all the walls he had built crumbled. Tears streamed down his deeply furrowed cheeks, carrying with them all the pain, regret, and love he had suppressed for so long. In his mind's eye, Lyra's image appeared vividly. Her radiant smile, her golden hair dancing in the wind, her clear laughter. He recalled Ariel's words about the melody of longing, the melody of memory's strength, the melody of connection, the melody of the circle of rebirth, the melody of courage, and the melody of wonder. Each of these melodies, Elias realized, was a part of the healing journey he had unknowingly embarked upon. Chapter 10, The Watchmaker of Eternal Melodies. Elias returned to his shop. The space was still dusty and filled with silent, broken machines. But this time, he no longer looked at them with despair. He saw them as souls waiting to be awakened, each with its own story, its own melody waiting to be heard. He gently touched an old pocket watch, the very first one he had made for Lyra. He didn't try to mend it in the old way, didn't mechanically pry open gears or springs. He simply listened to its breath, listened to the story it wanted to tell. He felt its heartbeat, not the heartbeat of perfection, but the heartbeat of existence. And miraculously, the watch trembled slightly, then a faint tick-tock sounded, growing stronger, more regular. Then another, and another. Not all of them worked perfectly, but they had found their own rhythms, each with a unique beat, a different sound, creating a gentle symphony of time. Elias understood that time was not a linear sequence of events or meaningless numbers. Time was the flow of emotions, of memories, of connections. He could not control time, but he could live fully within it, listen to it, and help others listen to their own time. Elias's shop was no longer shrouded in darkness. The first rays of a new day filtered through the window panes, illuminating the clocks that had rediscovered their rhythm. The diverse tick-tocks, warm and vibrant, were no longer monotonous, lifeless beats, but the melodies of each clock's soul. Word of his change spread. At first, people were merely curious about the transformation of Elias's watch shop. But then they began to bring him not just broken watches, but dead watches. Watches they felt no longer had a pulse, no longer connected with them. These were people carrying sadness, fear, and a sense of being lost, just as Elias once had. Elias didn't just mend watches, he listened to the stories of those who brought them. He used his experience, the lessons he had learned from Lana, Alara, Nova, Silvana, and Leo, to help them find their own melodies of time. He didn't offer direct advice. Instead, he helped them see what could not be seen with the eyes, hear what could not be heard with the ears, and feel what could not be touched. He helped them understand that pain was not an enemy, longing was a part of love, and acceptance was the key to finding peace. He became the watchmaker of eternal melodies, a symbol of healing in the city of time. He still remembered Lyra, but that memory was no longer a burden. Instead, it was a source of strength, a motivation for him to continue helping others. Lyra's smile, her laughter, remained eternally in his heart, no longer needing to be clung to by time. It was a beautiful note, a part of the eternal melody he had found. The city of time still moved quickly, but gradually, the clocks Elias mended began to emanate different rhythms, no longer the monotonous, emotionless tick-tocks. People began to pause, to listen. They not only heard the clocks, but also the whispering wind, the falling leaves, the laughter of children, and the beating of their own hearts. They learned to feel time, not just to race against it. Elias sat in his shop, surrounded by the diverse, warm tick-tocks. He looked out the window and smiled. He had found his purpose, not to mend time, but to feel and honor it in every moment. And in every beat of a healed clock, he saw Lyra's smile, echoing forever in the eternal melody of life.